From the little bits I can remember when I was younger, it was good. I had a pretty tight family. I was pretty naive to everything. We all sort of lived on the same street, got on with all our neighbours. I was seeing my dad every weekend with my brother. Mum took in, who was to be her new boyfriend. He didn't have a lot going for him, and it was mainly his kids that were the issue. So the older one would do anything to get me in trouble. She'd break things, she'd steal things. And then the younger one, he was a horrible person. From what I can remember, that's when it all started going downhill. My mum got a drug habit, mainly brought on by her new boyfriend. She sort of started to go off the rails a bit. He was having a big influence on her. We'd be out at parties until 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I don't know if it was a New Year's party or a birthday party, but we were just sort of told to go off and play, just go and play outside or whatever. And I came to find Mum, and I saw her passed out over a cooker. And I just remember screaming, and everyone was telling me to get out. She wouldn't be waking up in the mornings to take us to school. We were having to get ourselves in, making our own lunch. And then my brother was being taken off by the rest of the family. He's got autism. And during Mum's sort of, call it a phase, that's when he started getting bigger, he started getting more angry, couldn't control the aggression. That sort of had a big impact because all my confidence from then just sort of disappeared. And without my dad there as well, that was really difficult because I started seeing him a lot less. That's sort of when I started to go downhill, started to realise everything that had happened before. Say year 7 and year 9, it became how I couldn't get myself out of bed. I couldn't go into school, I couldn't do anything. It was a feeling of emptiness and just complete worthlessness. I started smoking a bit of weed recreationally, and then I started finding that it really helped my mood. I wasn't feeling the extremes that I normally felt. I could actually get through the day and get outside. It was literally like my air. I couldn't do anything without it. And then from that, I started to know people. So I guess I sort of got myself into the wrong crowd. And it wasn't just weed. Then came the ecstasy. I'd never felt happiness like it. It was the best feeling in the world. The only thing I could look forward to was the next time I was getting off my face. And then came the cocaine, and that's probably been the worst. Just because of how difficult it's been to come out of it, to break the habits, to learn that little bit of self-control. I couldn't go out for a weekend, I couldn't go and stay at a friend's house because I wouldn't be able to smoke, and that was priority. That was probably the worst thing about it, just the fact it sort of took over my life. It was a case of going into school, stoned, and then by the end of the day, I'm exhausted, I'm grumpy, I'm agitated. I guess it all just got too much again. I was feeling suicidal. I told my mum straight away. I went to A&E, and that's when I was basically told if you want the help and you want to get better, you have to stop, otherwise you're not going to get it. I started to sort of become in touch with myself more, started to understand the way I was feeling, and I started talking about how I was feeling. It's very early days, but I feel a lot more free now. I actually have the ability to talk about the things. I haven't touched cocaine in quite a while. Haven't touched ecstasy. It wasn't as difficult. The hardest part has been stopping smoking. It was just about breaking those barriers. So you'd have the first day and, I wouldn't be able to sleep, I wouldn't be able to eat. But then the next day, I sort of felt alive. My mum's made a big effort, and I've sort of welcomed her back in with open arms because she is the only family I have. And I know her childhood wasn't easy. Now she knows the mistakes she's made. I know she feels guilty with it, and she's living through this as well.
There you have it. That was a child, Chloe, telling her story, what it was like to live with depression and the habits that she picked up along the way. What is very key, apologize about this. What is very key is that she recognized that her parents had split up, and the difficulty that she had was adjusting to the absence of her father, and what took place was the new boyfriend. He became the role model. He also had children in tow. So can you imagine the change? So you've got an authority, you've got to be respectful as a child, and then you've got more siblings coming in as well. And the fact that you've got more siblings coming in, there's another change. And then you heard that there was fighting going on and disagreements going on between each sibling, the mother's side and the new boyfriend side. And so therefore I know it's very difficult when you're step parents to these children, whose side do you take without it causing a disruption between new boyfriend and new girlfriend. So in this case, the new boyfriend, he seemed to have already had some kind of addiction and drug habit when he got with the mother. Then hence the mother started to take cocaine, etc., and all of those things, all those drugs that she was doing. As you heard, she was slumped over a cooker. These are things and traumatic experiences that children actually witness, and then getting into the habit themselves. The kids started getting into the habits because they are learning what the parents are doing, so the household become unhealthy. And so these children, they're showing the way through adults. I'm afraid they are shown the way through adults. Um, you know, the drug habit. So the male that is stepping in has a habit. The mother's picked it up. Now the child picks it up. The child can't, going to school stoned, and then you move from the drugs, from the marijuana to cocaine, etc., and etc., etc., and it just spirals out of control. So they're taking all of these medications to mask what the issues are. And I reckon the issue with the mother having a new boyfriend is that she didn't pick wisely about this person, and it seemed to be something that she's picked up. Maybe she hadn't quite completed the last relationship, or adjusted to that separation, because it's very clear that the children didn't adjust to that separation either. The kids end up being the parent themselves and being the role model by getting themselves up, getting themselves dressed, washed off to school, getting their own breakfast, getting their own dinner. Basically survival, because the parent is absent. And so it's quite sad and depression, but very depressing, because it reminds me a little bit of my own childhood, getting up, having to go to school on my own. Everybody else has got school meals and sweets along the journey, and I didn't have anything. And I'm taking myself to school. I was often asked myself why that my parents or parent, whoever was responsible for me at the time, never actually came to any of the school plays. So I can relate to this child. I can relate highly to this child, not only in my childhood, but I can relate to it in my own pattern that I once had also, before I went on the recovery journey and rediscovery journey to be raising awareness now under the Mind Over Matter project, suicide prevention. That's something I founded based on experience, pretty much like Chloe's story. Is a whole whirlwind when it comes to people's home lives, what they're seeing, how they're learning it, where they're picking it up from. And I do believe that as an adult, yes, we are, and you can. You heard her say that her mother was in a midst of her own storm. And if the mother didn't have any guidance to depression or having how to handle it, then she certainly wouldn't be able to show her daughter or the family the right correct way without the right supervision and the right support through her own journey. Otherwise she wouldn't have got herself with somebody that was taking drugs around her children, and she certainly wouldn't have been doing it either had she had the right guidance and support and education. So this part of the signs and the symptoms that Chloe was saying is that she stopped going out, she stopped hanging around, because she was trying to break a habit. So she was in a crowd at one point, people that were like-minded, smoke, drink, drugs, all of those things, and because she wanted to break that habit, she retracted. And she said the hardest part to cleaning up her act was to give up the cigarettes. But what she did, which is what most survivors have to do, especially if they've been drinking drugs and alcohol, they have to break the cycle and move away from those people that also have an addiction or a habit. And they may not even want to deal with their habit. It may not affect them the same way it affects somebody like Chloe. But some people just take these things as a mask to the pain of what they're going through. From experience, Chloe's story is amazing. It's on point. That's a teenager. So therefore, what I wanted to say is whether that's a teenager or whether that's an adult, the remit is the same. Education, awareness. It makes no difference of the age at all when it comes to depression, but we have to break it within our own families. We have to make sure that we don't pass on this slopping over a cooker, etc. We don't pass on the passing out the drugs and the alcohol and the domestic violence. We have to make sure we break that cycle. So that was just a short awareness today that I wanted to raise. I hope that resonated with some of you people, that even though it's a child talking, adults talk that way by expressing as well. So it makes no difference whatsoever the age. But as an adult, we have a responsibility and we owe it to the future generation to try and break the cycle. Thank you for listening. I am Kerry Mussington, Mind Over Matter.